All right, hello everyone, TrustSwap community. Jeff Kirdeikis here, coming for an update. We put out a community feedback form a couple weeks ago, and so all your questions, your comments, everything you had put in there, going to be addressing that. Also giving some company-wide updates. There's been some changes to the Launchpad allocations. Going to cover those. Going to cover the Launchpads we have coming up, and some milestones that we've hit in the roadmap ahead. So with that, let's dive in. On the feedback form, one of the questions was, what is the most exciting aspect of TrustSwap for you? Over 70% of people said Launchpads. So let's dive into Launchpads right now, cover that. The last couple Launchpads have been very, very good, two of which have been Oculus and NFT champions, of which are 130x and 70x right now. So that's really fantastic. We have had some other ones that performed incredibly well also. So Launchpad season in full effect, and we have definitely a stacked lineup until the end of the year and then beyond. But right now we're just planning to the end of the year. So with that, we have another Launchpad coming up, and based on when this video goes live, it may have already been announced, but if not, I'm going to announce it now because it'll be announced hours after this video goes live, max. And it is SoulChicks. It is actually the NFT blockchain play to earn player versus player game that I'm the most excited about, that I've actually ever seen in crypto. So really excited to be launching SoulChicks on the Solana blockchain, SOLCHICKS. You can check that out on Google, or if the announcement is already live in the announcement channel, check that out. We also have a large metaverse play coming in mid-December. This one we're really looking forward to. This one is a TrustSwap incubator. We've been working with them hands-on. So look to see some airdrops and staking pools for this metaverse. And speaking of staking pools and airdrops, as mentioned many times before, we have a flurry of airdrops and staking pools coming before the end of the year. So when do you get the airdrops and who gets the airdrops? The airdrops happen after the vesting period is completed, and so it just so happens that before the end of the year, there have been a lot of the vesting periods that have finalized, and now we are ready to give those airdrops out to the people who were the top 1,000 stakers at the time of that Launchpad. So if you're a top 1,000 staker now, you don't get the historical Launchpads. You get the ones that are happening now. So if you want to get future Launchpads, generally the airdrops could happen 6 months, 1 year later. Get into the top 1,000 stakers because you're going to get those airdrops. And then the staking pools, anybody can participate. We're going to have them on Polygon, Binance Smart Chain, ETH as little as possible to reduce the gas fees. And those will be coming out in flurries before the end of the year. You may see a couple popping up this week, actually. We have reworked, as a lot of people have seen, we have reworked the Launchpad allocations. So just kind of little history when this was announced. I think the price was around $1.15, $1.14. Currently, as I'm recording this, price is around $1.40. So the Telegram room, always people having livid and candid discussions about the pros and cons of this new Launchpad allocation setup. Clearly, the markets speak and people like this. The effect is we want to have more buying pressure, people actively engaging and participating in the TrustSwap ecosystem. So first, let's back it up a little bit and let's talk about the old staking system. Basically, once you got to a 3.5 multiplier, it actually didn't make any sense to continue to climb the ranks. It actually made more sense to create a new wallet because it cost 20,000 swap to get to the next level. So it became increasingly harder to get a 1x multiplier, and therefore people, capped out. They're like, 3.5 or 4x, like that's enough. It's not worth it to spend another, 20,000 swap to get an extra x multiplier. People were just kind of sitting back, not really participating, just, rinsing through the Launchpads. And we figured that's not the activity or the participation level that we're looking to see in TrustSwap. So what we have done is made it a lot easier to go through these ranks. So rather than it being leaps of 20,000, in fact, every single new level is only a leap of 2,000 swap every single time. There's a discount once you get to level 45. So then to level 45 to level 50 it's less expensive than the rest. Everything else, 2,000 swaps, super, super easy. To get involved, 4,000 swap, 2,000 or 2,500 swap score. If you don't know what a swap score is, it's the average amount of swap staked over 60 days. So again, to reiterate for people who may be new, to get involved in TrustSwap Launchpads, which are access to early stage startups before they launch on the market, all you need to do in the old system and in the new system is stake 4,000 swap. Boom, you're in. You are in. You can stake it on Ethereum and you can stake it on Polygon, or you can stake 2,000 on Ethereum, 2,000 on Polygon. The scores combined, 4,000. Fantastic. You are in. Guaranteed allocations, no gas wars, 24-hour application window. This is a really good method. Or you could stake 2,500 swap, wait 60 days, then your average will have become 2,500 over a 60-day window. Boom, now you only have 2,500 staked, so it's even less expensive to get involved. And of course, expensive probably isn't the right word to use because you can always withdraw those swap from the staking pool and resell them on the market. So it's more like an interest-free loan, you could say, where you're exposed to a little bit of volatility, but that is about it. So with that said, the old model was too hard for people to get through the leaps, and they'd stay stuck, they'd stay stagnant, they wouldn't purchase more swap. It was a stagnant ecosystem, and it really did a disservice to the people who wanted to participate more. So we wanted to fix that. We created a linear model where it's 2,000 for every level. So 1x is 4,000. Again, that's the initial 4,000, but then 2,000 after that every single time. Next one, 6,000, 8,000, 10,000. So you're going from a 1x multiplier to a 2x multiplier to a 3x multiplier. And what does an x multiplier mean? How much money do I get to allocate into these projects? So a community member just recently did a sheet and it explained it very well. With our current staking mechanics, the current people in the pool, in the old model, if you had a 1x multiplier, you would allocate about $105 if the project was raising 1.25 mil. If they were raising, let's say, 2.4 mil, then you'd get to put in double, which would be 210. So it all depended on how much the project was raising and the concentration of all the other stakers. So bottom line, if you had 1x before, you got 105. Now in the new model, if you only have 1x, you get 75. So some people say, oh, that's not as good. I'm losing out on $25 per allocation. Sure, but the design is not to stay at 4,000 swap. The design is for people to continue climbing the allocation ladder from 1x, 2x, 3x, 4x, and now it's more accessible to do so. And as we've seen in the price, people had a resistance. They did not want to buy more swap because they didn't feel it was conducive to climb the ranks. Now that it's easier to climb the ranks, boom, here goes the buying pressure. So we can see that this strategy already works after 12 hours. So this is the idea. And rather than the old model where it went from a 1x to a 10x multiplier, now it goes from a 1x to a 50x multiplier. So the more swap you stake, the better you're going to be. And we've also changed the max staked amount. So in the old model, 250,000 swap was kind of where you get the 10x, and we thought that's a lot. We should reduce it so it's more accessible for everybody. And so now it's only 100,000 swap or 80,000 swap score. So 80,000 swap staked over 60 days. And if you're doing allocations into these launch pads like Opulus or NFT Champions, $1,000 or I guess $100 allocation, you times that by 130x, that adds up very, very quickly. So the idea is to be able to let's just say reconfigure your portfolio so that what you earn through Launchpads, you're able to then reallocate to swap and climb the ranks so that you can then get larger allocations the next time. So that's the game theory. So some people say, oh, this isn't fair for the small stakers. And I can say this, it disincentivizes or makes it not fair for the people who plan to always stay at 1x. The people who are at 1x now or 4,000 swap now are for sure worse off than they were in the old model. The old model, they were great. They could just 4,000 swap, sit back, relax, I'm never buying another swap in my life. But that's not what we're looking to have in our ecosystem. So now those people who they have the 4,000, they get a Launchpad, they make a big winning, you flip that back into swap, climb the ladder because everybody's climbing the ladder. So that is the ecosystem we're creating, is everybody needs to climb the ladder. People who are just sitting back at 4,000 swap, they are going to be a little bit disenfranchised, but I think we can all agree that is for the benefit of the ecosystem. It doesn't raise the level of entry. The level of entry is still the exact same, 4,000 swap. However, once you get in, if it's in your best interest to continue to climb. So that's good enough on that. Of course, if you want an extra X, we have golden ticket NFTs on OpenSea and on Swappable. So you can just search up TrustSwap golden ticket, and you will find, if you hold one of those golden tickets at any of the Launchpad dates, you get an extra multiplier. So that's another easy way to go about it. Right on. So as mentioned, staking is now live on Polygon if you haven't seen that already. So what does this mean for people who aren't familiar? ETH gas fees, we all know staking costs $100. Transaction fees on Uniswap, sometimes $200. So now you can go on QuickSwap, which is the Polygon. Polygon is like a, let's say, cheap version of Ethereum, and be able to trade TrustSwap tokens. And you can also buy, sell on that QuickSwap Polygon exchange. Then you can also stake, and the staking fees are much, much, much less. It's like literal pennies to be able to stake versus $40, $50 sometimes on ETH. So that is a big move that we've made, moving over to Polygon. And both pools are going to have 50-50 staking rewards. So the staking rewards aren't just going to be the ETH pool, they're also going to be in the Polygon pool. The exact same amount. So even though right now there's less than 1 million swap in the Polygon pool and there's about 40 million swap in the ETH pool, they're both getting the same amount of rewards. So think about that. There's a big opportunity here right now as we're continuing to do buybacks and redistributions. You want to be in the Polygon pool because the Polygon reward percentage is much higher. It's only split between 1 million tokens here, split between 40 million tokens over on ETH. So I hope people see that. We're going to be we just actually did a round of distributions for about 50,000 swap a week ago. So that was on ETH only, and now we're going to be doing that on Polygon as well. Buybacks are going very strong lately. We're doing, actually I'll get into the team finance stats later, but our business is going well. I'll just put it like that. Speaking of Launchpads, going to probably wrap it up with Launchpads with this point, is that our Launchpad process is good, but it's not great. And we want to get it to be great. And so what we have currently is this process where as the Launchpad opens, then you do your KYC and then you go through all these processes and it takes 4 to 5 days. Our goal is actually to move that to pretty much 0 time at all. So like where you can just boom, allocation, boom, you're in, done. You can finish it within an hour. That's the goal. So we're gradually moving there step by step and making it look and feel a lot nicer and cleaner. So step number 1 is, I believe, for SolChicks, we should have this ready where you can apply and do your KYC way ahead of time, anytime you want. Literally, the portal will always be open with Securitants. And then when you're like, hey, listen, I'm ready to apply for SolChicks, you just click the button, how much you want to allocate, and your ERC or Polygon or Solana wallet address, and boom, you're done. You'll get the email, off you go. So super, super easy. And Launchpad process going to be getting a lot simpler, a lot quicker. All right, so yeah, as I mentioned, let's move on to team finance. So currently we have over $4.5 billion secured in the protocol. $4.5 billion. That is more than Uniswap v3. So Uniswap, I think we can all agree, is the largest decentralized exchange globally, and we have more total locked volume than Uniswap v3. Uniswap's market cap currently is in the billions and billions of dollars, but I'll let you guys kind of figure that one out. We have over 13,000 projects that have used team finance. 13,000 projects. That's more than any other project. It's not more. You have protocols like Ethereum, of course, lots of Ethereum ERC20 tokens, or Avalanche or Solana. Those are layer 1 protocols. But for projects, TrustSwap is really the only one that has 13,000 other projects using their ecosystem. Chainlink, I think, has about 1,000 projects that use Chainlink. And TrustSwap, we got 13,000. And so how does this benefit the swap community? This is always the question. So here is how. Every time a project uses our services, and one of these projects can use the service 10, 15, 20 times. I'd say on average they use it about 3 times. It's per lock. They get charged a fee. Currently that fee is $50, and our closest competitor is $500. So we're undercutting the competitor by a factor of 10 just to really dominate the market, really get all the momentum over to TrustSwap. Clearly that is working. That's a side tangent. How does this benefit everybody? That $50 we are then taking and buying back swap tokens 100% with it. So it's as if the project had purchased the swap tokens and then paid with it. It's the same mechanics. They would have created the buying pressure, gave us the swap. In this instance, just to make things a little bit simpler, they can give us whatever really currency they want. We convert that into swap, so the exact same buying pressure. And then what we do with that is we toss 20% to the stakers, so 10% split in the ETH pool, 10% in the Polygon pool, and 80% goes to business development, where we use for various acquisitions, hiring, salaries, marketing, all of those kinds of things to continue to grow the TrustSwap brand and the value and utility of the token. Just like you saw us acquire, Team Finance and the crypto app, those were both paid for basically in swap tokens. And so we're continuing to grow. Now the utility is on Team Finance. Now the utility of the swap token is on the crypto app. And I'm going to dive into that later too, because that is absolutely huge. Let me make sure that I've written the crypto app down here. I actually had not. So I'm going to put that in my notes to talk about later, because that is a very huge point. So all the revenue, it's going to the stakers, it's going to the business. Everybody is winning. And the plan, of course, $50. This is just, initial phase as we develop a more substantial system, more value rich. That price will increase. As mentioned, our competitor, which I think we do a better job of than our competitor, it's $500 per lock. So we will gradually ramp up our prices. The amount of dollars going into buybacks will increase, and as will community rewards and business development capabilities. So that is very, very good. You have token locks, liquidity locks, vesting as a service, and of course, mint. We'll talk about mint another time though. Right now we're doing about 300 locks per day, and that is on 7 different blockchains. And that is expanding all the time. And I think in terms of liquidity locks, token locks, that is more than any other service. So we're number 1 in that as well. Number 1 in total value locked, number 1 in projects using, number 1 in number of blockchains. And that's continued to scale. And we're number 1 in least expensive. So that's great. Going to pivot. You know what? Actually, let's pivot right now to the crypto app, as I had mentioned it. So let's just talk about the crypto app. Some people don't know what the crypto app is. That's fine. The crypto app, you can go into TrustSwap.org, scroll down, it's the very top header, and click on it, navigate to it, download it on your phone. Right now it's a portfolio tracker and news provider, so you can check your crypto prices, create your portfolio, see what's happening in the crypto space. Very, very soon, you're gonna be able to buy, trade, stake, earn yield on various cryptocurrencies in this app. And for people who are not aware, this is one of the top, I believe, 5 most downloaded crypto apps globally. So we're putting up against Crypto.com, against FTX, against CoinMarketCap, against CoinGecko. We're in the top 5 for the crypto app. And the swap token is the main utility token within that app. So what the swap token allows you to do is to earn extra yield on your staking. So let's say you're staking Bitcoin and then you also hold swap. Well, you're going to earn a higher APY on your Bitcoin. Or if you're staking USDC, you're going to earn a higher APY on your USDC. Or if you're doing in-app swaps, this app will basically, for all intents and purposes, be an in-app cryptocurrency exchange. Guess what the utility token is for that to reduce your trading fees? You guessed it, it is the TrustSwap token. So TrustSwap is basically just like Binance BNB. It allows for a discount in trading fees. It's the exact same thing over on TrustSwap. So really good news. I hope you guys play that scenario out in your mind as we scale one of the 5 largest crypto apps globally, with Swap as the main utility token. Let's pivot to PulseChain. PulseChain has been a topic of conversation. So where to start here? The main concern with PulseChain that myself and many others have is that what PulseChain is doing, it's never been done before, but they are essentially copying the Ethereum blockchain and recreating another version that has lower gas fees. So this is very exciting. So if you had 100 swap on PulseChain, you now have 100 swap, if you had 100 swap on ETH, you now have 100 swap on PulseChain. So that's very exciting. However, this introduces some interesting mechanics for the token economy, because let's say TrustSwap's market cap is $100 million for simplicity, and that's based on 100 million tokens at $1 each. Well, now PulseChain has just created another TrustSwap with 100 million tokens at $1 each. So does that now mean our TrustSwap is automatically worth $200 million? Is our company worth twice as much just because PulseChain exists? What if another project comes along and forks PulseChain and there's 10 more PulseChain forks? Are we now worth $1 billion just because of these forks? I don't think so. That's not how it works. What happens is you have a larger supply, and so the value is less. That's what happened with Tesla. They did a stock split. The stock price was getting too high, so they said, okay, we're going to issue 10 times as much stock to everyone. Boom, the price crashed. It just rebased, let's say. And so that's the dynamic you need to work with. So what we cannot do is just say, hey, listen, everyone, all the tokens on PulseChain have full utility across the entire TrustSwap ecosystem, because we'd effectively be doubling our supply, which would be disenfranchising everybody on the ETH chain. It just creates an interesting dynamic. I don't want to go too deep into the rabbit hole here, but let's get right to the point that I'm trying to make. When tokens get bridged over to PulseChain, the PulseChain tokens will be utilized exclusively within the PulseChain ecosystem. So this means PulseChain Launchpads, the only way to apply for them is actually going to be with the P-Swap token, the PulseChain Swap token. So this will be one instance where swap does not transfer over to PulseChain. We're going to keep this PulseChain utility aggregated within PulseChain. This is open for malleability, but we think this is the best path forward initially, as projects and ourselves understand how to navigate this essentially double dilution. Right now, we're just going to segregate it and deal with it by itself. Over on TrustSwap, boom, you're going to have the TrustSwap ecosystem. It branches to Solana, it branches off to Cardano, to everything. PulseChain will be its own self-contained ecosystem. We're going to see how that goes and iterate from there, just as we've been iterating since day one. Speaking of PulseChain, which is very closely related to Hex and Hex's long-term staking pool, let's talk about that for a moment. TrustSwap is also going to be launching a long-term staking pool. So these new Launchpad allocation rewards that you just saw roll out, these are not permanent. We are going to be switching to the long-term staking pool Launchpad allocation model in the future when it's ready. When will it be ready? It could be 2.5 months, it could be 3 months. We're going to make sure it's tested. We're not rushing to get there. So let's say 2.5, 3 months, just being on the longer side. And basically, right now, how you have it in the current Launchpad model is, let's say you're earning 10x on the new version, you're earning a 10x multiplier because your swap score is this, or your stake swap is that. That's really only taking into account the amount of swap you have. It's not taking into account the length of time you're willing to commit to the ecosystem, because you can withdraw your swap, pardon me, it's carbonated, at any time. What we want to do is encourage people to stay vested within the TrustSwap ecosystem for a much longer time. So what we're setting up is a long-term staking pool where your Launchpad multiplier will be based on your Launchpad allocation score. so the models that we currently have, multiplied by the time variant. So time variance will work something like this. If you have staked for a minimum of 30 days, and you have to lock it in on day one, you're like, okay, how long do I want to stake for? And you make your decision, and then your decision is final, and you cannot go back on this decision. If you stake for 30 days, you get a 1x multiplier. If you stake for 60 days, you get a 2x. And I don't know the numbers off by heart, so I'm just going to kind of ballpark them. If you stake for 1 year, you get a 10x multiplier. If you stake for 2 years, you get a 20x. If you stake for 5 years, you get a 50x multiplier. So for example, if you stake a bunch of if you have whatever amount of tokens, whatever multiplier, whether it's 10 or 20x, and then you stake for 5 years, which is a 50x multiplier, those two multipliers come together, and that gives you your new Launchpad allocation, if that makes sense. It should. That get the two scores combined, your time on the staking pool, so not time, sorry. If you have a 10x multiplier on the existing model, and you have staked for 5 years, which gives you a 50x, or if you've staked for 1 year, which gives you a 10x, you combine those two multipliers, 10x, 10x, 20x total is your Launchpad allocation multiplier. And that also works for staking rewards. It's all proportional in the staking system, and all the staking rewards will be going to the long-term staking pool. So the idea with this is to get people, staked for a long, significant amount of time. Lots of people are already signaling that they're going to be staking for 5 years. So think about what impact that has on the tokenomics of TrustSwap. If we have X percent of tokens, let's say 30, 40, 50% of tokens staked away for 5 years, some stake for 4, 3, 2, the entire supply is out. People in Bitcoin all the time talk about supply shock when Bitcoin comes off the exchanges and what impact that has. So it's going to be very similar with TrustSwap. Once all the swap essentially evaporates and gets mitigated into staking pools, what effect will that have on the ecosystem when somebody wants to come in and buy swap and climb the ladder? Well, is there swap to sell them? Not as much. So what impact does that have? And so that's what we're moving towards. And like the new staking model, this is very much designed to help improve the tokenomics of TrustSwap. Some people won't be happy because they'll say, oh, I don't want to stake for a year. I only want to stake for 7 days. And I only want to stake 4,000 swap. We get it. But that's not what we're looking to have. A lot of people, well, not a lot of people, but some very vocal people say, oh, this is BS. I only want to stake 4,000 and forget about it. And I want to be in and out whenever I want. Sure, that's what you want. But let's think about the greater good, the whole entire ecosystem. And that's what we're working towards, so that everybody can win together and build this ecosystem, not have it stagnant. And so the new staking reward system and the Launchpad, the new long-term staking pool, those combined, it's going to create some magic. I can guarantee that. Right on. So yeah, one more point that I wanted to talk about is I had mentioned about team finance is just how our revenue is getting distributed right now. So on the team finance, we got 80% that is going to company and to build the project, to add more value to the swap community. 20% goes to the staking pool. On team finance, I just said team finance. On the crypto app, it is the exact same thing. And then on Swappable, it's the inverse. So 80% of the rewards go to stakers. All the trading fees, 80% go to the stakers, and we actually burn 20%. So team finance, the crypto app, 80% towards the business, being able to build the ecosystem, 20% towards the stakers. And then on Swappable, 80% of the transaction fees go to the stakers, 20% we burn it. Swap is a deflationary token. Of course, lower the supply, the more scarce it becomes. Plus, you have the locking in the long-term staking pool. So anyways, I won't get into that. Finally, one point that was raised, or a question, is when is the group chat going to be happening for the larger holders? It's something that I'm very excited about. Because I want to be able to chat and get feedback from people who have a vested interest in this ecosystem. We're going to fire it up with the current Launchpad model. Hey, if you had 10,000 swaps staked, boom, you're in this conversation, in this exclusive Telegram group. However, we're going to wait until the new long-term staking pool comes out, and we're going to have it based on both number of swap and time, because we don't just want whales who have, millions of dollars, telling us what to do, but then they come in and they come out. We want people who are balanced. Of course, we want people who have large amounts of capital, but we also want people who are in this for the long term. So that will be what we're waiting for, the new long-term staking pool coming out 2-3 months-ish. Then we'll fire up the new Telegram group so that people who are really vested in the TrustSwap ecosystem can join this conversation, because I think that is really what we're missing. I think we get a lot of noise in Telegram from a lot of people who are just holding 4,000 swap and just making a lot of noise for the sake of noise, or people who don't hold any swap at all. So anyways, with that, really good day in TrustSwap land. Again, from $1.10, $1.14 to $1.40. But if I refresh, yeah, we're at $1.42 now. So we're on the move. The new system is certainly working, and I hope you guys like it. And if you don't, I hope you can maybe reevaluate and check out the Telegram pin post. In there, we have a couple of graphs that demonstrate the difference between the staking reward tiers and how it's so easy to climb the ladder, and it's very easy for you to get large allocations. You just need to be a participant in the TrustSwap ecosystem. That's what we're rewarding, active participation. And I think we've created a good system. Thank you guys for sticking with us. We are trucking along. We've got a lot more news and updates behind the curtain, but I'm going to stop. I'm going to slow down on the announcement of announcements and just talk about what has been said so far, and we'll roll out with more exciting news in the future. Right on. See you guys.